Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining us. Let's get started. Okay, I'm here with attorney Jessica Ramirez to break it all down. Now, Jessica, this is an interesting case. Interesting for him to get on the stand and say this. I mean, he said he didn't even care if it wasn't his baby. He was going to take care of this baby. He said he's a convicted felon. When would he have a position to actually raise a child any other time? Felt like it was a blessing, and that he was the good guy here by going over to her house because he felt that she was threatening to have an abortion. What do you make of his story about what happened?
Well, you know, I think that when you decide to put your client on the stand, or attorneys decide to put the client on the stand, there's a lot of things that you take into consideration. Is he going to be likable? Is he going to be sympathetic? Is he going to be able to explain in understandable ways what happened? Here, I think it's I think he's having a hard time. I think a lot of his explanations are not reasonable. I think that he is definitely showing who he is, and very misogynistic, I think very controlling. So if I'm not a betting woman, but if I were to bet, I don't think that the attorney had any say, or maybe wasn't his idea to put the client on the stand.
They've had a long-term relationship. He even said it on this, and he's known him for quite some time. And that back and forth between him and his client, I gotta wonder what that's like, because Markeith Loyd has been so outspoken during the course of this legal process. And even we could see he was directing his attorney at point to ask further questions of certain witnesses and to not ask questions. What do you think that relationship's like? I would assume Mr. Loyd is a very difficult client. He did want to represent himself in the beginning of the case, and I think we all have our judgments of defendants that want to represent themselves. I think this attorney is probably one of the only people that Mr. Loyd can trust. I think by his testimony and his lifestyle, there's not many people that he trusts. And I think it's a very difficult, he's probably a very difficult client. Again, I'm not a betting woman, but I don't think that it was his idea to have his client testify. All right, well, he did testify, and now they have to deal with the reality of that. Let's play a little bit more of Markeith Loyd on the stand from earlier in the week. Now, you could argue he seemed really credible there, and that he really never wanted this to happen. Taking what he just said, but in light of what he said under cross-examination, where he said he had all the guns, that he never felt that Ronald Stewart had a gun, that he even said that Ronald Stewart looked like he was trying to appease the situation at one point, that he's the only one who fired. Can that still be self-defense right there? Can the jury look at that and say, you know what, maybe he really was in fear of his life and that he was protecting himself? Or does it just not back up with everything else we've seen?
Well, you never know, and it could be taken both ways. The jury could look at this man, and I think that he is telling the truth. I think he is being very credible. This is a man who's been institutionalized. He's been in prison for 12 years. They live a crazy life. He has 2 guns on him at all times, so he's on high alert all the time. And there was a gun brought. I mean, right. The victim did bring a gun downstairs to essentially argue with him. So I think that just standing alone, this testimony here, it could, but once you take the totality of circumstances, everything, and his rants about just going off in different directions, and the fact that at one point during cross he had 3 guns or 2 guns on him, it's not, I don't think it's self-defense. Is
there also a strategy here? Let's put him on the stand. I mean, obviously it's his decision, and they probably consulted with his attorney. Let's go on the stand, and even if you're convicted, you have just told yourself your story. You have humanized yourself, and in that way, the jury is thinking about this when they have to sentence him, and that could be the strategy here too.
I don't think that is the strategy. I think that has to be the strategy now. I don't believe that his attorney would put him on the line for that strategy. But now that it's happened, I think he does make that makes a good argument during sentencing. There's a lot of issues going on. There's a lot of mental issues. He's had a sad life. And right. I think in regards to sentencing, Exhibit A, his testimony, is what could help him.
Okay, well, we're not quite there yet. We're still waiting for the closing arguments. The judge is instructing the jury right now. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we may be live.